Mr. R.K. Singh, welcome to Times Network.
Yes, Nikhil.
I speak to you after a very long time.
Yes.
In a different role,
Yes.
completely. So, different kind of experience. But you have been a power minister of the country for a substantially long period of time
Yes.
now. What are the changes that you have seen or you have driven in this ministry? It's obviously one of the most people-oriented ministry.
Yes, Nikhil, actually we've changed the face of the power sector. We've transformed the power sector. We were power deficit when the Modi government came to office. Now we've added almost about 166,000 megawatts of capacity, power generation capacity. And now our total capacity is 400 gigawatts, that's 400,000 megawatts. Whereas my peak demand is 215 gigawatts, 215,000 megawatts. So, I mean, that is stupendous. In no other country has so much of capacity been added in such a short period of time. We've not only done that, we've also connected the whole country into one grid. We constructed almost about 157,000 circuit kilometers of transmission lines, connecting, Leh, Ladakh, right to the extremities down to Kanyakumari, Gujarat, Pakistan border, Myanmar border, straddling some of the highest terrain in the world. So our Alsting Leh line passes at 16,000 feet. It's also cutting edge technology. We have cutting edge technology here. We have 800 kV HVDC, which is one of the cutting edge technologies. The inter-regional transfer capacity we have increased from 34,000 megawatts, which was there in 2014. That means from one corner of the country to another corner of the country, you could transfer only 34,000 megawatts. Now I can transfer 112,000 megawatts. That's what we have done in the past the term I have been in office. One nation, one grid, running on one frequency, connecting Leh, Ladakh to the whole country and Arunachal Pradesh, whatever. And, this is perhaps the single largest integrated grid in the world. One grid running on one frequency is single largest. They have other, they have part grids, but not one grid so long. Then we have, the sort of, we invested about 2,02,000 crores and we have revamped the distribution system. So, generation, transmission, distribution.
Mr. R.K. Singh, 2-3 points you made in your introduction, and I am surprised, and I'm rather pleasantly surprised to see that your zeal with the data has not dimmed, it has still only gone up.
I have a memory, I remember things, yes.
So, 2-3 things. You said that, the peak production capacity is much more than the peak demand today, if I get it in the common man's. Yeah. So, how is it, Mr. R.K. Singh, then that we see power cuts? How is it that...
Because the thing is that I have the power generation capacity, but the bulk of it is still coal fired. So you need coal. Without coal you don't get power. It's simple. So if you have a short supply of coal, you won't get power. Now the problem is that my demand, we've connected 2.86 crore homes. The economy is growing, it's growing rapidly. Last quarter it grew at 8.7%. The net result is that on a day-to-day basis, my power demand on per day is 45,000 megawatts more than the corresponding day last year. The number of units consumed is 1 billion units more per day than last year. That is 1,000 million units more we consume per day than we are consuming last year. So in energy terms, our demand has gone up by 25%. All right? So you need more coal. Now, the coal ministry has ramped up its production, but not to the extent that is necessary. Not necessary, but not the extent as is required, because the demand has gone up. So, as a result of this, I'll just give you some data which will make it clear. For example, in April, beginning of April, our reserve stocks were about 24 million tons. We keep some reserve stocks in our power plants. and the daily consumption is fed by daily arrivals. And the stocks were depleting from 1st of April to the 30th of April at the average rate of 1,20,000 to 1,30,000 per day. Net result, from the 1st of April to 30th of April, the stocks had come down to 19 million tons. Similarly, right up to the middle of May. Now, if you have shortage of coal, you will have shortage of power. So we decided to import. I asked all the GenCos to import, the state GenCos, everybody, NTPC. So they have started importing. Now the imported coal has started arriving, and now again, so we are having coal as per our requirements. So the stocks have stopped declining. Now, why that is important is that the stock position now is important because during the monsoon period, which we are on the verge of, the coal production in the mines will come down further. So the coal production will come down by in just 3 months. That is July, August, September. Our assessment is that the gap between coal production and coal consumption will be 42 million tons. Right? Now, so that gap we need to keep as reserve, because in the monsoon season that arrival will not be there. So now after the import, the process has reversed, even though marginally the decline has stopped. And the shortage on a per day basis has also stopped. In energy terms, for example, on the 5th, the shortage was just 0.3%. Now 0.3%, whereas if you take 2014, the average normal shortage on a normal day used to be in the region of 12%, 13%. Yeah.
So in between, on the coal, some politics also happened. You said that states have not done the planning. States, including the Chief Minister of Tamil
It's not a
Nadu.
question of planning. No, you didn't hear me. It's a question of production. The question is not planning. The question
I'm saying previously you said that
not
states,
planning. The basic. I have asked the states to import.
Yeah.
You see the generation. So I asked not only the states. I've also asked the central GenCos to import. I've also asked the IPPs to import. We have 3 segments in generation. One is the central GenCos, NTPC, DVC. The other measure is the state GenCos. Every state has its own generation company. Now, and then there are private power producers. All of them are fed by Coal India Limited. So, this pressure has been there, or pressure on coal has been there now for almost 8 months, 9 months, right from September last year. It has been there. So basically, we sort of had been flagging this with the Ministry of Coal, us and the states. Yeah.
So when you say that states planning is amiss,
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say states planning is amiss. I made a simple statement that the coal arrival at the power plants was much less than the consumption on a daily basis throughout the country, and that is why the stocks of coal in generating plants throughout the country, public and private, declined from 24 million tons on the 1st of April to 19 million tons in the 30th of April, and then it continued declining for some time till the import started.
Yes, in that,
So I told the states to import. The national GenCos, NTPC, etc. to import. The IPPs also to import. Yeah.
So in between, there is also an issue of railway rakes availability. States like Tamil Nadu who are at the end of supply chain, probably. Chief Minister wrote.
You see, basically, I don't know. You see, I only know as to the demand placed by the generation companies on the Ministry of Coal and how much is delivered, and the gap I told you. Now, basically, whether it is because the coal is not there at some places or the rake is not there at some places, that is a distinction which probably the Rail Ministry and the Coal Ministry will be able to tell you.
Okay, let me then move to a more, something that is in the line of sight, because that's a technical issue also. See, in a city like Delhi, it is today virtually possible even in the low-income group households, etc., to live without an inverter because the power supply is almost 24/7. Even in the peak of the summer, there is no crisis of power per se, and you don't have to spend extra money on inverters, genset. But when it comes to places like Noida, Gurgaon, Bangalore, even Mumbai, this doesn't happen. What is the issue, Mr. R.K. Singh? What is the issue?
You see, basically,
is it the issue of availability, distribution?
No. If you look, till the increase in demand by 40,000, 45,000 megawatts, before that period, if you take it, then even after this period now, after the coal supplies, we have, supplemented with imports, even now. Basically, the issue is not of availability, number one. The issue is not of transmission either. Availability, as I said, we are meeting the demand. The shortage, if any, which is 0.2%, 0.3% in energy terms, is only because of local faults, not because of either availability of power or because of the difficulty in transmitting that power from the generating station to the states. So these two problems have been taken care of. We have by and large helped the state. In fact, we have by and large taken care of the distribution systems also. Because, as I said, we invested 202,000 crores in all the states' distribution systems run by the state discoms, etc. And therefore, we reduced all the constraints which are there, replaced frayed out lines and added transformers, substations. We've given money to the states for whatever they needed. So basically that has been taken care of. Now, if there are there would be some kinks here and there which will get sorted out in the new scheme which we have. But mainly it is because of the states not being able to procure power, because their discoms don't have money or something like that. There is no shortage per se. The shortage will happen only again if the coal falls short. Then you see you have to accept it. No coal means no power.
Generation.
No coal means no power.
So this is an interesting point that we come to. On the discom, you have also allowed them just yesterday probably that they can pay their dues in EMIs, etc. I saw it in the news yesterday. Now, discom's financial health is a matter of concern. On top of that, increasingly private players are coming in, but the political parties, and a certain section of political parties particularly, do not stop from promising free power. We have seen in the days of earlier times when I was a college student, I was a school student, growing up, massive power cuts and massive power shortages because of freebies. Unless, Mr. Singh, you know it better than anybody else, power is charged at an appropriate rate. Obviously, it will not be lucrative for the producers to produce it. And the kind of
this is something which I keep talking about. This is something which I keep sort of, discussing this with the states about, with the energy ministers about. Now, I tell them this. I tell them that look, power is not free, right? Now, you want to give power free to whichever segment of population you want to. You go ahead and do it. But then you don't want those people to pay, the consumers to pay, then you have to pay for it. That means you won't pay for it. Your budget has to pay for it. So one of the two have to pay. Either the consumer pays or you pay for the budget. Now, what was happening? So this is one of the power reforms, or DISCOM, more accurately the DISCOM reforms, is a subject which we have been pushing and pushing and pushing, and there has been a pushback from state. You have irresponsible politicians of all hues and varieties who are not concerned about what will happen, down the line. They just want to win today's election, and they don't want to lose votes. So even if in the long run their state goes black, they don't mind. You see, that is what has been happening. What is the cure for this irresponsible politics, you tell me? I keep talking to them. There's just no response. Now, what we have done, I'll tell you what I have done. I have done whatever, I have tightened the screws in a way which has not been done ever in the past. What I have said is, number one, I revised the prudential norms of the PFC and RC. What they used to do was, They would sort of announce subsidies, not pay, and thereby the discoms would be in dire straits. Their government department, state government department dues are also in the region of about 80,000 crores, right? So they would not pay. So the discoms were in dire straits. They would not be able to replace burnt transformers. They would not be able to replace the frayed out conductors, etc., etc. And they would not be able to pay the GenCos, whatever. They would not be able to buy the power from the exchange, whatever. Now, the GenCos who had PPAs, they had to willy-nilly keep supplying, otherwise they had to shut down. The GenCos would have had to shut down. So, whenever they needed money, they would borrow from PFC and REC. So I said nothing doing. PFC and REC will not lend you money unless you follow the following prudential norms. So I have revised the prudential norms. That means if you want to borrow money, if your AT&C losses are high, you will first undertake to bring them down.
Those reforms.
Similarly, if the gap between your average cost of supply and the average revenue realized is X, you will give a trajectory to bring down to zero. And we shall monitor it, otherwise we will recall our don't. One tightening. The other tightening which we did was we said that all power will be dispatched only on the basis of letter of credit. Now, one problem with that is that the generator has to invoke the letter of credit. Now, you can fight for the generator, but not if the generator can't fight for himself. So, the provision for LC is there. The DISCOM gives the LC. Now, these generators don't invoke the LC even if the DISCOM does not pay. So that I can't help. So the GenCos will also have to, that is a lecture which I give to the GenCos, that I can't help you if you don't want to stand up for yourself, I can't help you. But there is one thing which I have done, which is in this rule which you referred, which we have just got up. Now, we've also said that we shall help you to pay. This latest rules will help all the states to pay. Because we have, number one, brought down the rate of late payment surcharge. We've also said that for your legacy dues, if you undertake to pay in installments, then for the duration of that payment, the late payment surcharge will not apply. Provided you pay on the due date, the installment has committed. Yeah. But we have added one rider. Now, after this, after giving you all this concession, if you default, then we will not leave it to any individual GenCo to NTPC or DVC to cut off your power. No, we shall start curtailing your access. So you don't pay, your short-term access will go first. That means you can't access the market. Then you don't pay the next month, then 10% of your long-term and medium-term access will go. So your access will start going automatically. So that is another thing if you look at the rules. So that is something which will ensure that they pay. Then the new scheme, 3 lakh crore, RDSS. So I have said again, a policy, that any money you get from Government of India under any scheme will be conditional. You want money from Government of India for revamping your system, adding more substations, etc.? Fine, take it. But if you are making losses of AT&C losses above 15%, give a trajectory backed by your cabinet, mind you, for reducing it to below 15%. ACS Telangana gap above 50 paise, give a trajectory for reducing. But so that is something which has been, because of this, almost every state cabinet has agreed to bring down their AT&C losses, given the trajectory, and to reduce the ACIR gap. So this is something which has never happened before. We not only did that, the revised prudential norms we have got implemented in every bank. I spoke to the Governor RBI, I wrote to him, and the Governor RBI to the Department of Financial Services, all the banks were contacted. All the banks, commercial banks, have also adopted the revised prudential norms. So now, despite all this, you will see the distribution, the DISCOMs becoming more responsible, because otherwise now they don't have any option. They won't get any money as grant from for any project. They won't get any loan.
But with this and with your new Electricity Act, the states call it draconian, and they call it that this is an encroachment on their power. And that brings me into another point, that in this...
Now, how do you, Nico, now tell me, okay, you see, as you said in your question, that, you have irresponsible politicians in the states and they don't bother, they just announce free power. So, does that need to be disciplined or not? I am asking you that question.
Of course, most neutral observers will say.
You would say that. You are a neutral observer. You would say that. So what we are doing is only that. We are bringing some discipline to DISCOM. Is that draconian? I am asking you. I am reversing roles. I am asking you.
But they say it's an encroachment on their power. You are putting your own nominees.
Now you come to a constitutional question. Now, as far as the constitutional question is concerned, electricity is in the concurrent list. Concurrent list means that the government of India has a jurisdiction and the state governments have jurisdiction. It is a concurrent jurisdiction with one rider. That where the government of India makes a law, that law holds good. And if a state wants to make another law, which is in contradiction to the government of India law, that won't stand unless the government of India agrees to it. So it is concurrent. Now, concurrent means that it does not mean that the central government has jurisdiction only over generation or transmission. No. Concurrent means concurrent over everything, including distribution. So we make tariff policy, we make rules, yes.
And in this period, this crisis, you also
invoke. And what is draconian about saying that you consume power, you have to pay? Is it draconian? I'm asking you.
Or you are, they will say that in enforcing discipline, you are like headmasterly.
No, I'm not. All that I'm saying is just what a bank tells every borrower, right? That you have to pay. There you are.
And you recently imposed Section 11 of the Electricity Act. There was some consternation about it, that this is such an emergency situation that government has to do it. Will it continue further, or is it going to just...
It will continue as, till so long as...
And what was the need to invoke it?
I'll tell you why. You see, once we have shortage of coal, suppose you don't have domestic coal, or your requirement is 100 tons and you are getting 80 tons, let's say. And the average shortage was 12%. Now, because of imports, we are making it up. Now, so what do? There is no option but to import.
Right.
Now, so you get imported coal. Now, the imported coal is used in two ways. One is it is used for blending. And incidentally, blending has been happening in the country for decades. People have been importing coal for blending. The average import for blending has been in the region of 20 to 25 million tons per year. And then there is the imported coal-based plants. Now that's about 17,500 megawatts. It's huge.
Yes.
So if you are having shortage of domestic coal, what will you do? You will tell your imported coal-based plants, you better run it. The difficulty with that was two. One was that these imported coal-based plants were they had PPAs which did not allow for pass-through of the increased price of coal. That is the problem. So, and so they were loath to import coal and run the plant, and the PPA holders were loath to buy it. So we said that no, this won't do. I need the 17,000 megawatts. So I said that you shall import coal, you shall generate power. We shall lay down, looking at what the international price of coal is, what the benchmark rates are. So you shall supply power at that benchmark rates to the PPA holders. If the PPA holders don't take it, then you will sell in the exchange. That's what we did.
So, but will it continue this?
Till so long as the domestic coal production does not pick up. It has picked up, but it needs to pick up more.
Okay. Now that brings me to another point, which is we have discussed the sector and the politics around it, and now to the consumer. There is an apprehension that with more ingress of more private players, while efficiencies may go up like it has gone in other sectors, cost of power will increase.
No, I'll tell you. Number one, you see, where is the ingress of private sectors? We have been telling the states that you must open up, to sort of allow anybody who wants to come so that there is competition and the consumer will gain. Now, the Act provides for it. The 2003 Act provides for it. It provides for more than one distribution company operating in the same space. In that, the provision is that if there is more than one distribution company operating in the same space, the regulator fixes the ceiling tariff, and the companies have to compete below that tariff. So, in fact, the price is capped in case of multi-distribution companies operating in the same space as in Mumbai. If there is a single distribution company, then of course it is an administered price. The tariff is fixed by the regulator on an administered price basis. So in one you have competition where the ceiling is fixed by the regulator. In the other you have the actual tariff being fixed by the regulator. I think the ceiling system is better.
Okay, so you think there is no danger that the consumer would be fleeced
No, in fact,
like a restaurant?
the power cost will be less.
Power cost will be less. Okay.
Because there will be competition.
Because there will be competition. And higher efficiencies.
And more efficiency.
Then
less losses.
That also brings me, Mr. Singh, to an important question. We have seen sustained attacks on our power infrastructure, like the entire world has seen, from United States to Taiwan, and we have seen from countries which are certainly not friendly to us. With the private players coming into play, do you think the government's role will become more in sense of a protector, because more protection would be required to the grids and cautioning them? And do you think that these attacks, these cyberware attacks or ransomware attacks, are only going to intensify in the future, and we need to prepare ourselves?
You see, the cyber attacks are a threat and will continue to be a threat till so long as we have enemies. And not only till so long as we have enemies, you see, the cyber attacks are something which can be launched by any misguided individual or group, not necessarily a national group. And this is something we have to be prepared for. So we are prepared for it. And that, sort of encompasses all our segments, whether public or private. So you have public generation companies, you have private generation companies, you have public discoms and private discoms. So our cyber security preparedness encompasses all. Whether it is a public operator or private operator, they both have to follow regulations. So the cyber security mechanisms are embedded in regulations. And we have mechanisms to keep sort of checking as to whether the cyber, cyber security precautions are being followed or not. We continue checking. Because of that, there have been attacks, cyber attacks, but our system has withstood it. And they have not been able to penetrate up to our operational systems. So the most vulnerable, of course, is the load dispatch center, the national, regional, and state. So by and large, our systems are secure. They'll continue to be secure. We are alert and vigilant.
Mr. R.K. Singh, there are many...
And these cyber attacks, basically they may appear to come from South Korea, but don't, even for a moment assume that they originate in South Korea. They would originate somewhere else, but they are masked to show that they are originating from some server in South Korea.
Yeah, because you sit in such a chair, I'm not going to ask you where they originate from, because that becomes controversial. Yeah. But I have a lot of things to ask you, but time is of essence. Thank you very much for speaking to Times. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And as always, you are a man of great detail.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.